If you can't go left, you can always try right. If you can't go right, you can always try forward. But no matter what you do, we'll always create a memory because you are special.
Hello, and welcome to RBV, the Milestone Whisperers, where we discuss milestones and the journeys to get to them. I'm your host, Dr. Rashida, and I have a really special guest today, Dr. Sam Shay. I just want to say who you are, and then we'll get into introductions. So Dr. Shay is a functional medicine expert, speaker, and stand-up comic who helps middle-aged women unlock their ideal diet, reduce inflammation, optimize body shape, and reclaim energy by decoding their DNA. So I know that's a lot of words. And it's so funny because I was a bio major in school, and I took one genetics class, loved it, got an A, but it stopped right there, so, but I really did find the subject interesting. So tell me a little bit about what you do, and to our listeners, middle-aged women like me specifically, what your mission is.
Absolutely. So I got involved into functional medicine for precisely because of trying to help middle-aged women. And it's because when I grew up, I was chronically ill as a child, and I was raised by a single mom. My father was de facto absentee, and my mom was suffering with a lot of physical pain and a lot of insomnia, and navigating all sorts of complexities. And by her own admission, she was not making the best decisions based on my behalf as the youngest child, given her circumstances. And my intent going forward is to okay, how can I support these women who I can't change what happened to me, but I can certainly change what happens to someone else. And my lens is that, and this is part of my bias growing up with an absentee father, that you help mom, the whole family is automatically helped, and that's where I'm coming from in terms of my guiding light. And I was chronically ill as a child from a whole confluence of issues, from terrible food, a lot of problems in school and at home, and developed sugar addiction, video game addiction, crippling insomnia, really bad, embarrassing digestive problems, anxiety, depression. My growth was stunted because I didn't have a growth spurt because of the insomnia. And I just made a decision in high school that I have to pick a different direction in terms of how I take care of my health, because the solutions offered by Western medicine, which was primarily SSRIs and television and emotional neglect on the part of my family in the 80s, it was not. I thankfully discovered natural medicine, which then led me on to going to chiropractic, getting my doctorate in chiropractic, and then becoming a functional neurologist for 8 years, and then getting an acupuncture degree when I was abroad, studying with an osteopath, getting training in 2 functional medicine schools, one with the Institute for Functional Medicine, one with Dr. Kalish, and then also becoming a FitGenes practitioner in genetics, ultimately becoming the Western Hemisphere distributor and international educator and trainer for health coaches and doctors and licensed practitioners for running genetics tests in their practice. And the reason why I've put such a heavy emphasis on genetics is that I got my genetics testing done when I was 36, and I would have done anything to have it when I was 6. Because what the genetics testing will reveal, and you can do these as long as someone's got a cheek and you can swab it, you can do a genetics test. I mean, I've had, I worked with one mother of 6 who had from an under 6-month-old all the way up to a 10-year-old. It's just cheek swabs on all of them. It was really easy. And the reason why I'm so enthusiastic about genetics is because it ticks so many boxes for people who are wanting to get some personalized data about what is the best way for me to personalize my lifestyle, my diet, my exercise, my recovery, my nutrients with one test, which the data will stay with me for life and will give me information on these really broad, important topics. And it's just so cost effective and so efficient and so easy. I believe it is the first test that people should do, which is genetics testing. And for me, when I was 36 at the time, I had crippling joint pain in my fingers like I was an 80-year-old man. And I was just in a lot of pain, and I didn't understand why, despite doing other functional tests and having a clean, local organic diet. It was like an episode of Portlandia. I knew the names of my farmers and their chickens. It was a Mediterranean diet, all these things, and I was still like not doing well. And when I ran my genetics, I learned several key things about my diet, my exercise, and my lifestyle. So first off, with the lifestyle, I learned that I was a genetic hyperinflamer. That of the 16 most important pro-inflammatory genes, I had 14 of them were hyperinflammatory. And which explained why I was so chronically ill, because you can draw a straight line from nearly all chronic illness back to inflammation. So I'm a hyperinflamer. That explains why I was so vulnerable to being chronically ill. So what I learned, not just why I was having these issues, but also what to do from a genetics lens. And so there's certain information recommendations you can't get except from a genetics test. One of which is a concept called nutrigenomic dosing, not nutritional, nutrigenomic. The difference is like if I'm hyperinflammatory and I give a gram of fish oil, that's like throwing widgets into the existing anti-inflammatory machinery that was generated by the genetics, by my genes. Nutrigenomic dosing is higher levels above a certain threshold that not just are widgets in the machinery, but change the machinery. You actually increase the amount of machines to help from the genes to help deal with inflammation as such. So within a couple of months, all my joint pain went away when I followed the genetic-based recommendations, and that was 10 years ago.
Wow.
So inflammation has so many implications across people's immediate life and their chronic issues that could develop later on. Second thing of many that I learned is that I am genetically predisposed to being a low-carb, paleo, borderline keto diet. So the Mediterranean diet, despite being super high quality, was the wrong diet for me. Now, you can now genetically test for, it's called a carb choice test. You can test for, are you genetically better suited for keto, paleo, Mediterranean, or higher carb, or some shade of gray in between the two, one of them. And that had massive implications. At the time when I did this test, when I was 36, even though it was like this Portlandia organic local diet or whatever, I was still having rapidly fluctuating energy, digestive, and mood issues throughout the day. And what I realized when I got my results back is that I could not genetically handle the quantity of carbs that was sending me through all of these cycles. The quality was perfect, but it was the quantity. So within a week of changing my diet back to my genetic boundaries around carbs, my mood, energy, and digestion stabilized. Third thing I learned, which is going to confront a lot of people listening to this, I learned that I was genetically vulnerable to, and I quote, caffeine-induced anxiety and depression.
What?
Yeah, I can feel the people drinking their coffee right now, being like doing a spit take. So
like what?
So caffeine. In fact, I did a whole podcast on caffeine sensitivity, which is released. I also produced the Fit Genes podcast. It's an entire episode just on the genes that regulate caffeine sensitivity that could lead to caffeine-induced anxiety and depression. If you want the long-form version, just literally put in Fit Genes podcast caffeine and you'll find it. So now here's where this is really critical. I, as a child, was struggling a lot with anxiety and depression and severe exhaustion from the crippling insomnia. I was on a coffee habit starting at age 6 in order to stay awake in school, including kindergarten. Now, I didn't know until 36 that some of, certainly not all, of my anxiety and depression could be directly caused by my genetic sensitivity to caffeine. So if I had known 30 years prior, my entire outlook and mood and trajectory on life would have completely been different if I had just done the simple cheek swab test to get my genetics done. Other thing I learned, I'm genetically histamine intolerant. Histamine is a branch of the inflammatory pathway, which is there. It's the body's emergency flood switch. When a bee stings your arm and your arm swells up, the bee did not inject a half quart of water into your arm. That's not a thing. What it did do is inject a tiny concentrated bolus of venom, which could, any venom, whether it's from a scorpion, a spider, a bee, a centipede, whatever, venom carries the risk of corroding and eroding muscle, vessel, nerve, or getting into the bloodstream and causing all sorts of havoc. So what the body does as its emergency response is it pulls the flood switch called histamine, and it opens up all the vessels to let water and fluid pour into the site where that concentrated bolus of venom is, to dilute it, to cut the concentration down. Poison is in the dosage. So it makes sense. You flood the area to dilute it. So you're supposed to have a histamine response in order, but if you have too little of it, of any poison hitting your blood vessel and muscles. If you have too much, then the water will swell and choke off the very vessels and muscle that you're trying to preserve. So if you're histamine sensitive, you're on the overreactive side of things. So if you eat high histamine foods, like, and this will upset another section of your audience, like, and I apologize in advance, like avocados.
I just ordered like a bunch of avocados.
Like chocolate.
Oh, wow.
Like aged cheeses, like preserved deli meats, like leftovers, like there's a lot of, quote, health foods or convenient foods that are high in histamine. Doesn't mean all of those foods are bad. It's in the dosage, and it's in your genetic sensitivity to said dosage. So people can have the same dosage of histamine but have very different responses based on their genetics and their prior histamine load. It's like a bucket. People have smaller buckets genetically, but also people can fill that bucket more aggressively or less before it's over. And so some of the symptoms that people experience from high histamine sensitivity are, and I'm speaking for myself, indigestion, foggy brain, itchy skin, headaches, and for some people they retain a lot of water weight that exercise will not get rid of.
Yeah.
So if you've got, I'm just listing 4 of the many things that I found in my own genetics test. And so if I had known, and if my mother had known about the genetics test, like, everyone's life would have been completely different if the whole family got tested. And like, you could look, the things you can learn from a genetics test, I'll just rattle off real quickly the 3 main categories: diet, exercise, longevity. From the diet, you can genetically determine what your carb tolerance is from a genetic standpoint, histamine sensitivity, caffeine sensitivity, if you should avoid gluten because you may be genetically vulnerable to getting celiac disease, which is really bad, lactose intolerance, susceptibility to general food allergens, so you should be on a relatively elimination diet to just cut out the major food allergens, your genetic vulnerability to overeating, to over-craving sugar, to over-consuming sugar, to avoiding healthy green vegetables. Some people listening to this is like, well, if I'm genetically susceptible to overeating and sugar craving and sugar consuming, I might as well just give up and pass the Twinkies. Like, no. These results, if you know that you're genetically vulnerable, like I am, to those things, it's not that I should just give up and careen into existential fatalism that my genes control my destiny. Instead, I do the most important thing. I don't control my willpower. I control my environment. If I know I am prone to craving and overeating sugar and related foods products like bread, I need to control my environment because my willpower will fail eventually. For example, I don't buy bread because half of it won't make it from the cashier to the car, the other half won't make it from the car to the fridge. But I'm not stronger than bread, but I'm smarter than bread. So if I don't buy it, I'm controlling my environment. There's way, like for sugar, I just don't keep sugar in the house. I just don't.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm not setting myself up to win. I'm setting myself up to not fail.
And that's a difference too.
Yeah. So you've got the diet stuff from the genetics, from one cheek swab test. Additionally, you get the exercise, which is what's your fiber type. This is especially of interest to you as a PT. Like, are you fast twitch fiber and slow twitch fiber, intermediate? Then there's the category under exercise of is your collagen genes weak? Meaning you're at a higher risk of injury? Are you genetically vulnerable to exercise-induced inflammation causing muscle injury? And then there's VO2 max. So you've got these parameters around exercise from your genetics. Like if you know what your fiber type is, you should pick the correct sport for your fiber type instead of the wrong one and potentially injuring yourself. And you know if you're vulnerable with your collagen and you're vulnerable with inflammation, like me, you have to focus. It's not the answer is not to not exercise. The answer is to put as much attention on recovery as much as you do exercise and proper form, so you don't risk injury.
Yeah.
And then the third category is longevity. It's the genes of inflammation, dealing with free radicals, liver detox, vitamin D synthesis and absorption, methylation, cardiovascular, circulation, fat metabolism. Those are all super important genes that look at your longevity, and looking at them in an order and priority, like inflammation's number one, that you can now learn just a couple really important lifestyle changes because you're looking at the most important genes. So like other genetics tests give you 300 genes and the attending 300 health tips that are overwhelming and confusing. They're not prioritized. That's not what I do. That's not what my company does. That's not what I teach other doctors, licensed practitioners, and certified health coaches to do. It's like, what are the most prioritized things to do so you can win right from the word go and not be overwhelmed? Because genetics is massively overwhelming. But what we've done here is make the genetics test beautiful and easy to read and prioritized, so you can focus on implementing as opposed to like getting some hieroglyphic decoder ring to try to figure out all the weird genetic jargon and all this other nonsense. So if I had learned at age 6 my genetics and my mother had known about it, not only for me but for herself, then the entire family would have been infinitely better off. And that's why I'm passionate about genetics.
Yeah. That is so phenomenal to know, for one, that it's just a cheek swab. Yep. So it's easy.
Super easy.
Because it's scaredy cats like me that's like, how much blood you got to take? And you answered that already.
Don't push too hard. There'll be no blood. Just don't push too hard.
Just swab the cheek. Now, is this type of test something that people just do on their own, or do they have to have like a doctor refer them? So
Fit Genes only works through licensed practitioners and certified health coaches.
Okay.
It's not something that you can't go to Fit Genes USA and order the test. That is not allowed. Okay. We want people to work with certified health coaches and or licensed practitioners, because we know that if you just get someone their genetics data, they're going to Google themselves into terror. And what you need is and the thing is that the investment is so small, because relatively you just do the test once and then you get the coaching and support through your practitioner, and you have the lifestyle, diet, nutrition, exercise recommendations for life. and you want a practitioner to supervise in the coaching side of it, so you get everything implemented correctly and safely. And it is so worth it, because if people don't work with a coach or a practitioner, or a doctor or whoever, the likelihood of them implementing the wrong thing at the wrong level is so high that's why we don't sell directly to the public, unlike other companies.
I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, because it would send you down a rabbit hole, and you're like, oh, well, it says this and this and this, and even like me, that I have sort of a background, and but I just wouldn't know where to start, and then I would be reading labels, and I'm like, okay, let's throw everything out and let's get lettuce, and it's like, that may not be the right thing to do. So I definitely love the fact that it's guided by professionals, and you have, like, it's just not, you're lost with the information. It's comprehensive to follow. And even that you do it as young as a little kiddo.
If you got a cheek, you can do the test.
Yeah. I think that's valuable for families in general, especially, in my case, I have children that play sports. I wasn't an athlete. So, like, even as a PT, like, sports injuries and ortho was not my strong suit. That's why I work with the little babies. But I know that because I have children that play sports, I have to connect with people that's more knowledgeable than I am. And that just brings me to the point about my son. Last week he suffered an injury where he tore his ACL, his MCL, LCL.
It's a lot of CLs.
Traction injury, all the CLs. His both meniscus are good. So thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
That's a relief.
Yeah.
But he's only 15. He's about to be 16. We try to have a healthy lifestyle with our foods and things, even though he's a teen, so he does his chips and Gatorades and things like that. But just knowing that he's going to need surgery and all of that, I'm like, I don't want him to stop playing football. And I know that he's going to still be able to play eventually after like a year, 9 months to a year of his recovery. But even pre-surgery, I want to set him up to be successful, to one, not re-injure himself. He's, of course, going to be more susceptible to being re-injured because he has an injury. But I just want to make sure that his lifestyle in general, not just the rehab process of like healing, but just his lifestyle in general, we understand a little bit more about why this happened and how to prevent it from ever happening again. So my fear, though, is that we get this genetic testing and it's like, he doesn't have the genetic makeup for playing football. What do you do with families with that, or people with that, where it's like they have this passion and they want to be this sports person, and they get these results and it's like, that's not for you.
Well,
how do you?
Sure. So, like, genetics. In fact, the whole fiber type was really popularized by the Olympics. Some countries like genetically test their prospective athletes in order to divert them into the correct sport that they're most likely to be optimized for. So, in regards to look, first, I'm very sorry your son got injured. Injuries are never fun. I had an ankle injury when I was in high school, and it was not fun at all, and it caused definitely a lot of problems. In terms of recovery, I'll talk about the recovery, then I'll talk about the sports optimization. Are you getting an echo or feedback at all in the recording?
No.
Okay.
Are you?
A little bit. I think it'll be fixed on the Riverside. I think Riverside will.
Okay.
Okay. So on terms of recovery, look, teens are teens. And some of them, they have enough of a wake-up call, like an accident that requires surgery, that they will suddenly become more attentive to how they take care of their bodies. I had to do this because I was chronically ill. And I decided as a teenager that I had enough agency over my body and my food and my circumstances that I had capacity to actually improve my lifestyle, diet, nutrition in spite of, my home environment. So, so it may be a blessing in disguise. Maybe, I can't guarantee that if for example, if your son got his genetics test and then he saw like, oh, here's how I optimize my diet, here's how I reduce inflammation, because that will speed up my recovery so that at a minimum I can return back to sports as soon as possible. So whatever the motivator, whatever the goal is, this may be, and as a result, like, oh, this will help me get back to sports, and may not realize that it's actually setting up to be vastly healthier and have more capacity and optimize him for the rest of his life, no matter what he decides to do. But it has to be sports as a catalyst. Is like, oh, whatever works, So now, obviously, like, as as a PT, like some, there's for anyone going into any surgery, there's a list of supplements and so on you should not take immediately before going into surgery because of increase of less clotting, like fish oil being one of them, and so on. Like, I'm just putting that there as a public service announcement. Like, the warnings on avoiding certain supplements and things right before surgery are real. Afterwards, they're helpful to heal up, but those warnings are real. Things like vitamin E, fish oil, a couple others. But a good surgeon should have a list, and there's plenty of sites on the internet that explain it. Okay, that being said, him knowing like, is this collagen genetically weaker than other people, that is a higher risk for injury. That doesn't mean don't play sports. It means that he has to focus on recovery and safety more than other people. That's I have this. I have this very issue. So if he's a hyper inflamer, like also me, same thing. Have to focus on recovery and optimization and safety more than other people, because it's just a genetic reality, which then feeds into answering the next question of like, what do you do if he's not like, football is mostly a fast twitch fiber sport. That's this football is like start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. What do you do if you are genetically not optimized for your most beloved sport, and also if you've got weak collagen genes and are hyperinflamer? That word reality, my phrase is, I am a fan of reality. I am a fan of reality. I want to know what my genetic reality is, and then if that is in conflict with my current hobby or passion of choice, at least I know what the reality is, and then I can make informed decisions accordingly. If for example, that someone is in a fast twitch sport, but they are a slow twitch fiber, that means something. That does not, so statistically in the Olympics, almost all the podium, the medalists are for fast twitch sports, fast twitch Olympics, are fast twitch fibers. Not all. So there are some exceptions, but that's a lot of exceptionality to be able to overcome that genetic reality. So if you are that way, then there has to be, what you can do is set your expectations in a way that's more realistic, and also figure out clever ways to do other things. So for example, if you're more of a long distance, maybe linebacker isn't the right choice, but maybe being out in the field in like the dime formation, where you're way out in the outfield and you're like it is a sprint, but it's much longer experience there relative to the people who are the linebackers. And also, like, there are hundreds of different sports out there, hundreds and hundreds. And if you love one sport, I kind of feel that you are very likely to learn another sport. There are people who don't love any sport, and it's not likely they're going to love any sport if they don't love any sport. You know what I'm saying? Like I think the passion for sports and competition is transferable to other pursuits that may be a better match. Like I know people who are all in deep end, no life preserver pickleball. Like they're gone. Like they're gone. Like they're lost. Like it's terminal. Like they're just all in on pickleball. And and this is like what, a 5-year-old phenomenon, if that.
Yeah.
Like in terms of its level of crazy.
Just started hearing, yeah.
So people can learn all sorts of different. They can transfer their skill to other pursuits, and again, that phrase, I am a fan of reality. Just make informed decisions. That's it. That's my ask. Get information, make decisions based on that. And if you have to modify the way you enjoy an activity, and it's deeply painful, I feel you. Like I can't do a lot of things based on some of my genetic realities. Like I'll give you several examples. Like this is may not, like sports. Like I will never be the best athlete on any team ever because I'm an intermediate twitch fiber. However, because I grew up, I was the shortest kid in school, and I was scrappy and had something to prove. I was, for this grade school and stuff, that you got 20, you pick the thing for pick your teams, and it's always this sorting hat thing that's super stressful as a kid. I was never picked number 1, but I was never picked less than number 5. Never.
Yeah.
Because I was always valuable in any sport, but I was never the best at any one of them. I was an absolute master of versatility and adaptability, though I was never specialized. So that's me having a lived experience before I even knew about genetics of like, you know what? I'm valuable to the team even if I'm not optimized for a specific role.
Yeah.
Done. And I
kind of like that too.
Yeah.
I kind of like that because then you aren't stuck in one sport. You want to be versatile. That's what I try to teach my children too. Like try a little bit of this, try a little bit of that. I'm the one that didn't do any sports, but I encourage them to, like, if you during the off season, let's try this. See if you like that. Let's try that. Because you just never know. You might fall in love with another sport too, or like you said, you could be in the middle where you're not expert in it, but you bring value to the sport anyway.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Switching gears. Was that helpful for you in regards to you talking about your son?
That definitely was. That definitely was. His mind is just like football. But he also, he's about to be 16 and he loves the art of the sport. So he's definitely like, okay, what I got to do to get better, but what do I have to do just to be strong anyway? Because he wants to walk normal. Like right now, he's not walking normal because he's, in a brace and everything. So even though football is like his ultimate goal, but he just wants to be a regular teenager, and that's what's more important for him. So he's trying to figure out, what's the right foods to eat and things like that. So I think he's going to love hearing that we could get genetic testing to get a game plan, because I think that's a route that we'll all be taking in my household. So what about the people that aren't active, like me? I'm a PT, but I'm not active. But I just turned 47 on Wednesday, so thank you. And I have never been one that liked to work out. But I never really had to. I'm on the thin side. I'm petite, and I never really had a weight issue. But as I'm getting more and more in my 40s, I have this stubborn belly that just won't go away. And sometimes I feel like maybe it's an inflammation thing. I don't know. But like I love pasta, but when I eat it, I blow up like I'm expecting another baby. So what about those women that's like okay, I don't want to lose weight. I want to lose my belly, but I don't necessarily need to go to the gym to like lift heavy weight or do a lot of cardio because I want to lose weight. I just want to modify how I'm working out and what I'm eating, so that way I can optimize the times that I do go to the gym.
Yeah, so for people that struggle with belly weight and bloating after eating particularly carbs, there could be several possibilities. One is that they may have a bacterial imbalance in the gut, typically called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or they simply have low digestive enzymes and stomach acid, which then leads to partially digested food, which then the bacteria feed on and create. Bacteria basically bloom and then they fart. I mean, that's what it is. Which then can be what was describing a mechanism of how you get SIBO. Then there's people who are eating foods that may be high in histamine. If they're genetically sensitive to histamine, then they create more of this water retention. And most of the, if you eat a high histamine food, well, if you stung by a bee, your arm swells up. But if you eat a high histamine food combined with genetic vulnerability to histamine, combined with enough histamine foods you're eating to overfill that bucket, you're eating the equivalent of a slow moving full body bee sting centered around the intestines. So that's where, instead of the water, the bee stings you here in the arm and then the arm swells up, well, now you've got all this histamine in your gut and now the gut is swelling up because you got histamine slow moving bee sting in your gut, but we call it avocado. So other things around weight is that there's like in the genetics in the Fit Genes genetics test, there are three main genetic categories of weight. One is inflammatory water weight, which is the most common type of stubborn weight gain that I see. The least common is caloric fat weight gain, where people think it's all calories. No, that model's been dead for a long time. Most people put on inflammatory weight, which is inflammatory water weight. The reason why you have inflammatory water weight is that when you get inflamed, whether it's from over-exercising or eating inflammatory foods, or you're eating high histamine foods and you're genetically sensitive to it, or you're eating foods you're allergic to, or you're taking you're not absorbing enough vitamin D, so you're just more pro-inflammatory because you don't have enough vitamin D to calm the inflammation, or you've got issues with controlling free radicals because your genes for controlling free radicals are weak, and so you got more inflammation as a result, blah, 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 blah. Like all these reasons, or you're exercising and you get so much inflammation. These inflammatory chemicals, if they stick around too long, are very problematic. So the body will retain water to, like with the bee venom, dilute the inflammatory chemicals to buy the liver and kidneys time to filter out those inflammatory chemicals. So people who have a very pro-inflammatory lifestyle from whatever means, diet, over-exercise, lack of sleep, over-exercising, under-exercising, high histamine foods, whatever it might be, the body may retain water, particularly around the gut, in order to dilute the inflammatory chemicals from becoming a concentrated problem. So the people who are struggling with, bizarre belly fat, it may not actually be fat, it may be actually water. And so those people, then it's looking at your genetics to identify where am I genetically vulnerable to this inflammatory cascade, and then changing my lifestyle appropriately, and then seeing how that affects this water retention that's inflammatory based. So you can have the inflammatory water weight, you can have the caloric fat weight, which is calories in. There's a whole set of genes around calories and feeling full and converting fat into heat and fat into energy based on your genes. Like that's real. It's just not as common as the inflammatory water weight. But the middle one is the toxic hormonal weight genetically. Some people have problems detoxing toxins and also detoxing their used hormones. And what that can lead to excess weight is because the fat cells are the dirty closets of the body. If you got these toxins, you shove it in the dirty closet and you just kind of like just close that closet. You just don't want to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are trying to lose weight and you have a toxic fat layer, the fat cells will be very hesitant to release the toxins back into the bloodstream to be dealt with unless you have really strong liver detox capacity and your kidneys and bowels are clear to actually move them out. It's like if you're going to clean out a dirty closet, like it's a project. It takes over the whole house. It's a mess.
Yes.
It is a disaster area. It's the same thing with these toxins and heavy metals that are in the fat cells. Like you got to have your liver pathways and exit pathways clear in order for your body to feel safe enough to release these toxins. I'll give you a very real example that happened to me when I was in chiropractic school. One of my buddies who was in school, his chiropractic was his second career. His first career was being an airline pilot for 20 years. Now, you know how much toxicity they're exposed to with all the fuel and all the chemicals in the chairs and stuff and all that stuff. So what happened is that when he was in school, he got very ill from an infection and lost a ton of weight very quickly because he was so ill from the infection. Well, what happened? He lost nearly all of his short-term memory. He could barely remember where he lived, his phone number. He had to like stop school for a little bit. What happened? All those toxins that had collected for 20 years in his fat cells were all released at once. He couldn't properly get rid of them. And so where is the only other major source of fat in the body that fat-soluble environmental toxins and metals will go if you suddenly drop a bunch of body fat? Where is the one place?
To your brain?
The brain.
Mm-hmm.
The brain. And that royally messed up his brain. So that's why the body will be very hesitant to let go of toxins from fat cells unless you're ready. So if you know your genes and you look at, okay, how are my liver genes? You know, what's my lifestyle? What's toxic exposure? You know, hormones, all this other stuff. Then you can create a plan with your practitioner to get your body ready to properly and safely detox hormonal toxic fat.
Wow, it's such an interesting topic, and I just love the fact that you're not alone with this information. You know, it's not so it's like you have the tools to progressively figure out the game plan instead of just saying, okay, I got XYZ, now what? You know, so I really love that aspect of it, and I think that it's going to be valuable for my audience, but also to me and my family, especially with the most recent thing with my son. But even, you know, like me, perimenopause and trying to keep up with these teenagers and all their games. And I'm like, well, when am I going to work out and when am I going to eat? And so I want to make the right choices with what we're doing. So I like the fact that access is there for us, for people that do the Fit Jeans.
Absolutely.
Let the audience know how to go about, like, so say, like for me, I go and I say, okay, so we're getting genetic testing. So what's the steps of how?
Sure. So there's two similar but slightly different pathways. If you're a practitioner, a certified health coach, a licensed doctor, you can go to Fit Genes USA, FITGENES USA.com, fitgenesusa.com, and click Become a Practitioner, and then you fill out your information, upload your certificate or proof of expertise, and then we'll have a look at it and see if it's appropriate for approval. Then you can become a practitioner, and then you can then start learning about how to run these genetics tests in your practice, to make it very easy and straightforward, and how to order them for your client base. And then, if you're someone of the public, then what you can do is also go to fitgenesusa.com and instead click Find a Practitioner, and that's where we can match you to the nearest practitioner who has been certified and trained in Fit Genes. so that you can find the coach, the practitioner, the doctor, and so on that can guide you, order you the test, and guide you through the results. So
Okay.
that's the way to do it. Just Fit Genes USA is the same website for
Okay.
practitioner or the public.
That's perfect. I love that. And how long has Fit Genes USA been around?
Fit Genes USA has been around for about a year or so, but the company's been around since like Fit Genes Originals, like early to mid 2010s or so. I mean, I've been involved with Fit Genes since 2016. I've been able to bring it to the Western Hemisphere for about a year in its current form.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, I'm definitely going to spread the word to my family, to my listeners. Of course, I'm going to tag you when we post I'm only on YouTube right now for the podcast, but I put clips on my Instagram and on my Facebook. So we'll tag you. But this was such a great conversation, and I appreciate you taking your time out on the weekend to talk to me, because I work full time. So it's when can I do this podcast?
I totally get it.
So I really would like to keep in touch. Maybe down the line, especially once we have our genetic testing and things, we could hop on the podcast, or even I could just, utilize you off the podcast just to.
Well, sometimes what people do is that they get their test on the podcast hosts, and then I just review their podcast as another podcast. Like we go over yours, and we just record it and walk through it, and that way you get the experience of like seeing what it's like to have your genetics test walk through, and then also your audience gets to see what it's like to have their genetics test walk through, and just how straightforward it is.
Perfect. That's the route I want to take for sure. Yes, definitely, because I think they'll be like relatable to my audience to say.
Absolutely.
It's easy to go through. So, all right. Well, thank you, Dr. Sam, and I look forward to getting my results and touching base with you to go through it together. So, thank you, and have a good rest of the weekend.
You too.
All right. Bye.